Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another video. So this is the second part of my Next.js series where we will be doing project-based learning. And in this video, we will cover how to submit a form with user credentials, user authentication, and stateless session management with browser cookies. We will also understand how to manage forms with client and server components. If you have missed the previous part, then you can just click on the card above and jump to it directly. So, if this sounds interesting, then stick around. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel or press the bell icon so that you don't miss the videos like this one. So, let's get started. Alright guys, so in the previous video we have understood about the Next.js fundamentals, and in this video what we are going to do is we are going to look into the authentication part, how we can authenticate our user and do different operations for our contact manager. So what we will do is first we are going to go to our source folder and we will start with our login. So let me first delete this file. We are not going to write any custom CSS. We will be using Tailwind CSS classes, and let's go to the page tsx, and here what we can do is first let's start building our login form. So for the login form I will just remove this, and I will also remove the css from here. All right, so we have a simple div, and let's give some classes to this div. I'm going to have the max width md, and I will have the max auto. Then let's have the background to be white color. I'm going to give a padding of 8, rounded lg, and we are going to have the shadow md. So before writing the JSX for the login form and building the application, we first need to understand how authentication basically works in Next.js. Let me show you with the help of a diagram. So this is a diagram where we will be understanding how authentication works in Next.js. So you can see here on the extreme left hand side we have the client, where we are going to have a login or a sign up or a logout functionality or a form. So in our case, we are going to have a login form, all right? And from this login form, what we are going to do is we are going to make a call to a server action. Now, server actions are simple functions, but those functions are executed on the server side. So that will be the server actions. Now, in the server actions, whatever the data you are passing, so let's say you are passing an email address and the password, those data fields will get validated. If there is any error, you can get the error and you can display the error with the help of a state, which is the use form state. But in the newer version, instead of using the use form state, what we use is we use action state. We're going to see it later on when we start building our contact form and having the contact list and all those. But for now, you just understand that you can display the error messages if they are any in our server action. But once the server action receives the form data, then what it will do is it will send the data to any auth provider or a database. For our case, we don't have any auth provider or database, but we are going to have JSON server API. So that API is going to validate the user data. Once it is validated, user is authenticated, and when the user is authenticated, a session is created by default by the Next.js. But in that session, you don't have any information of the authenticated user. So we can use cookies and add those user information in the cookies. So this is where you will see here that you have a cookie part here. And this is what we are also going to do, exact same thing. Once you have the cookies, you can use the cookies for the authorization purpose, and you can define data access layer and everything, where you can have that whether you want the user to access a particular route or not. And once everything is done, you redirect the user. So you can just see at this picture, and we are exactly going to do the same. We're going to have a form. It will go to a server action. It will send the data request, and authentication will happen with the APIs. We have a session management. We are going to store our user information in cookies, and then everything is successful. We are going to redirect the user to a desired component. Here you can also understand that there are, whatever you see in the blue color, those are offered from the React. So those are the React features. All those purple color boxes, those are the features that has been offered by the Next.js. And this is a complete flow of authentication stages in Next.js. Now we understand that. Let's start by creating the form first. Then we will create our server action for authentication. Then we will also create a session for the cookies. So let's do that. I'm going to go back to the Visual Studio Code. Now we were here and we will just complete our form first. So I will go, and inside this we are going to have an h1, and we will have the login here. Now let's give some classes. So for the classes, I will just do a copy paste. So I will add the classes, and then we are going to create a component, and that component will be the login form, which will contain the login form. So I'm going to go here and create a new file, and let me have the file name as login form.tsx. Okay, I will simply do rsc and get the component, and I will have a login form here. Now I can use the login form in this. So I will have the login form. Now here you need to understand one thing, that by default, whenever you create any component, that component is a server component. So this is a server component by default. And in this, we are not going to do any user interaction or any form. So this login form will be a client component. So we're going to have a use client here, because we are going to have a form here, and then form will have an interaction and an action to submit the data. So that's why this is a client component, but this one there is no interaction. So this will be a simple server component, which is by default. Then we are going to create a paragraph, and inside the paragraph tag, I'm going to write don't have an account, and then we are going to create a link. So let's have a link. All right, and inside the link we are going to have the register. So I will have the register. Now let me give some classes to the paragraph tag. So here I'm going to give the margin top as 4, and the text will be center. Okay, for the link, I'm going to give an href. So let me have the href, and this href will go to /register. So I will have the /register, and let me give some class name. So I'm going to have the text blue 600, and whenever we hover, we want an underline to that. All right, so this is how the login form is. Let's go and let's check. So if I go here and if I go to the login, so let me refresh, and I see that we see context and button here. So that maybe because of the nav bar, we have the session as true. Let me have the session as false, so that we see the login and all those. So now we see that we have a login and register. If I click on the login, we see that we have a login here, and then don't have an account, and we have a register. But let's create this login form now. So I will go here and we go to the login form. Now our login form is a client component, and let's create the login form first. So inside the login form, we will have the form. So I'm going to have the form here, and let me close the form. Now in the form, what we will do is I'm going to give a class name. So let me have a class name as space x4, and then I'm going to create a div. Now inside the div, first we will have the label for our form. So let me have the label, and the label will be email. Okay, after the label, I'm going to create an input, and this input type would be email, and let's give the name to the input, which is also be email. Okay, then I'm going to create a placeholder, and in the placeholder I will be having enter your email. Then I will keep this as a required field, and with this we will also need to have some class names to hit, so that it will look a little bit nice. So I'm going to have the margin top as 1. I will have a block. I want my width to be full. I will have the rounded MD. So let me have the border. I will just do a copy paste of all the classes. All right, so these are the classes, and we will also have some classes on the label. So for the label, let's have the class names. I will have a similar block, text small device. Then we are going to have the font medium, and we will have the text gray 700. So if we go and check, then we see that we have our email field. Now with this, we will also have a password field. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to add it here, and let's change. So the type will be password. This will get changed to password. We will have enter your password, and the label will be password. Okay, so now we have the email and the password both. All right, and for this one, what I will do is I will give a class name, and I'm going to give a margin top as 3. All right, so now we see that we have the email, and we also have the password. Now we will also need a button, so let's create a button here. So in the end, after this div, we are going to create the button. So let me have a button, and the type of this button is submit. So I will have the submit. We will give some class names. So let's have the class names, and I will just do a copy paste for the class name. So we have the button, and the text inside the button will be login. So we have the login button and everything here. Let's give us some space here. So I'm going to have the margin top 3. Now what we will do is we have this one. Now if we try to submit this, then we will have the required field, because we added a required here, And now we need to understand what happens when we actually have a action here. So to have the action, we need to create a server action. This is what we saw in our picture. We will have a server action whenever a form is submitted. So let's create that action here. So what I will do is I'm going to go and create the actions folder. So I will go to the source app, and inside this I'm going to have the actions, and inside the actions let's create the auth.ts. all right, now this action, whenever you want to create an action, you always have to use a use server, because it's a server action and the function will be executed on the server. Next, we will also need the Axios to make the API calls. So let's install the Axios into our project. So I'm going to go here and I will have the npm install Axios. All right, so we have the Axios as well. Now we can make an API call. So if we go and check in our JSON server, so let's start the JSON server first. So I'm going to go here and I will have the npm start, and let's go and let's see the script. So I will have npm start server. So I'm going to copy and put it here, or npm run server. So let me have npm run server, and this is going to start our JSON server. So if I go to the users, then we should have our users. So I will go here, and here we have the users. So we can log in with the email address and the password. So what I will do is I will go to my auth ts, and first we need to import the Axios. So let's create a constant API underscore URL, and our API URL will be this one. So I'm going to copy and I'm going to put it here. All right, we will just keep it like this. So we have the API URL. Now let's create a function. So I will have the export constant login, and this is going to be an arrow function. And when you have this arrow function, you will receive the form data which you have filled in this form. So you receive that form data in the form of form data. So let me have a form data, and this form data would be of type form data. Okay, so we get the form data. And one thing you need to be make sure that whenever you create a server function, the server functions are always async. So they are always async. So we need to add an async. And if I don't add async, then I'm going to get a error. So let me show you. When we get an error, we are going to put async here. Okay. So now let's give a try catch block. Now in the try block, what we will do is we are going to have a constant response, and this response will be equals to await Axios. So here I will use the await, so I have to use async. All right, but maybe for the logout, so let's write a logout now. So maybe for the logout, I'm going to have the export constant logout, which is also an arrow function, and in the logout I will simply do a redirect for now, and this redirect will go to the login. All right, now we need to import the redirect. So this redirect will come from the next navigation. Now you need to understand, for the logout I did not put async, so we will get an error whenever we run our application. So for now I will just complete my login function. So we are going to have axios.get, and let's import the Axios. Okay, so we have the axios.get, and inside the get, what we will do is we are going to put the API URL first. So I'm going to have the dollar my API URL slash users, and then we are going to use the query params. So I will have the email, and my email address will be, let's get the values. So you have this form data, you will use this form data to get the value. So I'm going to have the form data, and you will put get, and you to have define the property which you want to get. So in our case, you need to give the name of the input property. So if I go here, here is the input, the name is email. So we are going to use the email here. All right, and this is going to give us the value of the email. Now, once I have the email, the next thing I have to do is I have to take the password. So I'm going to have the ampersand password. Password will be equals to, we are going to have the form data dot get, and let's get the name. So I'm going to have the name of my password. So I will copy and I can put the password here. All right. So this is how it's going to take the email and the password and then validate against the API we have. Once we have that, we can have the user. So I will have my user, and this user will be of type user type. So we have the user type in our types. So if I go down and if I go to types, then in the types we have this user type. All right, we have the ID, email, and name. Okay, so we have the user type, and this will be equals to the response that we receive dot data, because this response will be in the form of an array, and we will just take the first match. So I'm going to have 0. All right, and oops, I made a mistake. This will come here. Okay, So we have the user. Now once we have the user, what we will do is there may be a chance that if we don't have an user, then we will have a condition that if there is no user, we have to throw new error, and we are going to have the invalid credentials. So I will have the invalid credentials. Okay, so we have the invalid credentials, and after that what we will do is we're going to have the user. We are going to set this user in our cookies, so that will be create a session and then we'll set it in the cookies. But if there is not an error, so here what I will do is I will have the set user in the cookies. Now we will write that code afterwards, and if there is an error, then in that case what we will do is we are going to have throw new error, and in the error we are going to have failed to login. All right, and once you have this, the last thing what you can do is you can just redirect the user to the contact. So after a successful login, we are going to redirect. So if we go and check over here, then we set it in the cookies, and after this authorization part, for now we don't have any authorization for our application, and in the end you do a redirect. So that is what we are going to do. We want the user to redirect to the contact page. So we have this one. Now what we can do is in the login form, we are going to use the action. So maybe I will have the login action. All right, so I will just change the name to login action. Now let's use it in the form. So I will have the login form and I will use the login action here. Now if we want to give a try, we can give a try. I'm going to go to the browser, and if I refresh, then we see an error. We have the file had an error on line number 26. Let's fix that, and I will go to the line number 26. We have an export constant logout. We have the arrow function. Okay, what I will do is I will just restart my server for once. So I'm going to go here and I will restart my server. Okay, npm run dev. Okay, so we refresh. Let's go here, and if I refresh it, then we see that we have an error here, and this says that server action must be async function. And that's why I was saying that whenever you create any server action, that server action should always be an async. So let's go and let's fix that. So I'm going to go here and let's simply add the async, and it should work fine. All right, so now the port is changed to 3002. If I go to 3002, then we see our application. Let's go to the login. Then we see our login form. I'm going to inspect, and let's try to do a login here. I'm going to add the user1@gmail.com. Let me add the password, and when I click on the login, then we see that we have an error. So let's see what is the error. So if I go back here, and then we will first try to get the form data, and let's see if we get the data or not. So I'm going to go here. I will have a console.log, and I will log the form data, and let's have form data, what form data we get here. All right, so I will go back here and let's log in this time. So I'm going to remove, and I'm going to have the user. I will have the password. All right, and let's go and let's check the error. So if I go and scroll down, then if I go here, then we see that we have the form data. The name is email. So this is correct. All right, so now let's go and let's check. So if I go here and let me do an inspect. All right, I will do the inspect element. Now let's give a try for the user. So I will have the user one, and I will have the password, and I will click on the login, and we see that the user is logged in and we get redirected to the contact page. Now if we go and in the cookies, we don't have any cookies here at the moment. All right, now what we will do is we are going to get the user. Now we are going to set this user into the cookies. All right, so that we can use it as a session for all the other functionalities. So let's go back to the Visual Studio Code, and here we are going to set the cookies, but before that we need to create the function so that we can have the set cookies, and then we can get cookies and delete cookies. All right, because delete cookies we will need it in order to complete our logout action. So I'm going to have this as logout action. Okay, now let's go in the app, and I'm going to create a new folder with _lib, and inside that I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to have the session.ts, and now here we are going to have three things. The first one will be set session cookie. All right, then we are going to have the get session cookie, and the last one we are going to have the delete session cookie. All right, so we're going to have these three. Now let's create this first function. So I'm going to have the export constant set session, and we are going to create an arrow function here. All right, now in this arrow function, what we will do is we are going to have the async here, and we will receive the user data. So whatever the user data we have in our server action, we're going to send the same user data. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to send the user information. So I will have the user, and this will be of type user type. Okay, now once we get this user, what we will do is we are going to have an await, and let's have the cookies dot set. So we are going to have the cookies, then we are going to have dot set, and that is where we are going to set the cookies. So in this, what we will do is first let's give the cookie name, which is our session, and then we are going to have the data. So we will have the data as JSON dot stringify, and then we are going to have the user. Okay, after the user, we will also need to provide the some more fields, and these fields will be, we will have the HTTP only. All right, so we will give the HTTP as true. Next, what we want is we need to provide the secure. So let me have the secure process.env, process.env.node environment. This should be equals to, we are going to have production. And the third thing we need is the max age. So the max age will be, let's give the time for this cookie for 1 week. So I'm going to have the 60 into 60. I'm going to have 24 hours, and then we are going to have 7 days. All right, and then give the path. So our path will be slash. All right. So this is how we are going to set the cookies, and here we are going to have the bracket. All right. So this is our set session function. Now we will also need to write a get cookies. So what I will do is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put it here, and instead of the set, I'm going to have the get session. We will have the async. We are not going to get any arguments, but the type of this is going to return a promise of type user type. So I'm going to have the user type, or it could also give me a null. All right, and I'm going to remove this. Now the first thing we will do here is we are first going to get the session. So let me have the constant session. I'm going to have the await cookies, and we're going to have the dot get. All right, and we need to provide the name of our session. So we provided the name as session. So our cookie name was session. Then we are going to get the dot value. So if this is available, then we are going to get the dot value of it. Now let's have a check that if we don't find any cookie with the name session, then in that case we are going to return null. So let me have the return null. But if we found, then what we will do is we are going to extract the user. So we will have the constant user JSON dot parse, and let's parse the data. So I'm going to have the data here, and this data I'm going to cast it with the user type. All right, and then I can just simply return the user. So I will have the user here. So this is how I'm going to get my cookies. Now when we do a logout, we also have to delete them. So to delete, what I will do is I will have the export constant delete session, and for the delete session I'm going to have an arrow function again. So let's first get all the cookies. So I'm going to have a cookie store, which will be equals to the await cookies. All right, so this is going to give me all the cookies. I will have the async, and in this we can just give a delete. So I will have a cookie store dot delete, and let's give the cookie name. So our cookie name was session. All right, so this is how we will have a set session cookie, get session cookie, and delete session cookie. Now this delete session cookie can be used for the logout action. So if I go here, and what I will do is I'm going to use it here. So here I'm going to have the await, and I will have the delete session. All right, and this actually going to do the logout of our user. Now here we need to set it. So I'm going to have the await set session, and we pass the user, but I don't want to pass the complete user. I will pass few information because I don't want to pass the password. So I'm going to have the username. I will have the email. So this will be user dot email, and I'm going to have the ID. So let me have the ID, which will be equals to the user dot id. All right, so this is what I want. Now if we try to log in the user, we are going to have the cookies with this information. Let's check. So I'm going to go to the login. I'm going to go to the application. I will have the cookies here, and now let me try. So I will have my user one. I will try to provide the password, and I click on login, and you see that I have logged in now. Now let's check here in the session. You will find the information that I have provided. I already have the URL decoded. All right, and this is the user information which I have passed. Now I can use this information and can work on further wherever I need the user session or the user information. I can just retrieve it from the cookies. All right, so the first use case of this cookie is definitely the nav bar. We want the nav bar. We should not see login and register once we log in the user. here we need to see the contacts and the logout button. So let's do that. So I will go back here, and in the nav bar, instead of the session, this time what we will do is we are going to have the get session, and here we should use the await because it will provide me a promise. So now you will see that we have the session, and as soon as we get the session, you will see we see a contact and we see a logout here. All right, so that's where this will be useful. We have the user information, and based on that we can define whether the user is logged in or logged out. Now let's work on this logout button. Now here we need to understand that for this logout button, either we go and create into this logout button the client component, because there will be an interaction. I want to create a button where I can click on it, or we can also directly try to do it here. Let me first try to do it here, and I will show you why we have created this separate component. So I'm going to comment this out, and let me create a button here. All right, and I will give the name of this button as logout. Okay, now I want to have an on click on it, so let me have an on click, and whenever I click on it, I need to have a handle logout. Now I have to call this logout action, which is here, and that logout action is going to delete the cookies in the session, and then we will just get the redirect. Okay, so let's try to do that first. So I will have the handle logout. Let's create a function here. I will have a constant handle logout, which is going to be an arrow function, and I'm going to provide an async here. All right, now after the async, if I want to try the logout, what I will do is I'm going to have the await, and let's have the logout action. Now let's give a try. So this is a server component by default, and I'm trying to call a server function from the server component. Let's see what happens. If I go here, then you see I get a runtime error, and what it says that event handlers cannot be passed to client components prop. If you need interactivity, consider converting part of this to a client component. So there is an event handler which is the on click. Now this on click event handler, you cannot put it in your server component. Either you make this part a client component, or you have a proper client component for the logout. I have a logout button which is a client component, and I can use that. So I will have the use client. All right, and here I can provide any event handler or anything. So what I will do first is, let me go here. I'm going to cut this. I'm going to put this here. All right, and I'm going to cut the function as well. Cut, and I'm going to put the function here. Okay, now here I will just have this back, the logout. Now this is server component, and we don't have any event handlers on it or any user interaction on the server component. So what I will do is, now we have a separate client component which can handle all the interaction part. So first let's have the button, and I'm going to give some class name to this button. I will have the px as 4, padding on y-axis as 2. I want the background to be red 500. Then I will have the text inside the button as white. I will give some rounded corners. Then I will have the hover background red 600. All right, and then I'm going to give the transition colors, and in the end I'm going to have the cursor pointer. So I will have the cursor pointer. Okay, so now I have my logout button. Now with this logout button, I will have to write my handler properly. So for that, what I will do is, in the handler, let's have a try catch block. So I will have a try catch block. I'm going to put my logout action here, and let me import this logout action. Now what we do is, we can have here two things. The first one is the redirect happens in the server action. After logout, you need to do a redirect, so that can happen on the server action. The second thing is, we can also provide a client side fallback. So we're going to have the client side redirect is a fallback. All right, in case if something goes wrong and server action doesn't redirect, the client side can also redirect. And then here we can simply have the console.log, and what I can log is, I will have the logout failed, and here I can have the error. Okay, now what does this mean on the server action? If I go to the server action, then here in the server action you can see that we have a redirect. Now you can use this redirect, which is coming from the next navigation, in both. Either you can use it in the server actions, or you can also use them in the client components. All right, and this will work fine. Okay, no issues in that. But there is also another way which can only be used on a client side, and that is the router. So I will have a constant router which will be equals to the use router. All right, and this use router will coming from the next navigation. Once you have this, I can just comment this out, and instead of that, you can use the router dot push, and you can push wherever you want to take. So I want to take it to the login, and then you can just refresh. So I will have the router dot refresh. Okay, so this method you can only use it on the client components. This will not work on the server action. This is going to give you an error. But if you're using a redirect like this, then you can use this in the server function as well as on the client components. All right, now let's give a try for the login and logout as well. If I go to the browser, okay, the button doesn't look nice because it's not white color. Let me go and check. I have given a white, so this will become white. All right, now it looks good. So I can do a logout, and you see when I do a logout, I get to a login page, but we also need to check whether the cookies are getting deleted or not. So first let me add that. So I will have the user, I will give the password, I will click login, and here I get my cookies with the name session. Now if I do a logout, I need this to be deleted. So if I click on the logout, then you will see that it's getting deleted. So my cookies are being set. We can retrieve them whenever we want, and we can delete them, and we have this login and logout functionality for our application. Now the next part we need to do is we need to start building our contact manager application, and we need to have the contact form, contact list pages, and CRUD operations on our contact, and we can only view the contacts that has been created by us. So we cannot see the contacts of other users. So now we will take a pause here. In the next video, we are going to build the complete contact manager part where we are going to have the contact list and all those features. Alright, so that's all I have in this video. I hope you liked the video. A thumbs up is appreciated. You can also connect with me via Facebook or Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter for latest updates. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss the videos like this one. Thank you. Thanks for watching.